Connie.
Okay, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Welcome to our Clausen Charter Commission, meeting number 22. If everybody, the meeting is called to order. If everybody can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and words of inspiration. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We ask blessings on the people who have been called to lead this community in which we live and work and play. Keep in mind, because we all forget from time to time, that we are not only leaders, but also servants, and that it is our responsibility to serve the common good of all. Grant us the wisdom and the courage to know and do what is right and good and true. May we speak out when it is time to speak out, and listen patiently and receptively when it is time to listen. May we always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice, and the spirit of love. This we strive for in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy, all that we hold good and right and true.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Roll call when we're ready.
Hey, Chairwoman Slawinski.
Here.
Bolin.
Here.
Dwyer. Dan. Hanser Maynard is expected. All right. Where is that now? Irwin. Urchi.
Here.
Nasri. O'Neill.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is barely a quorum.
Okay.
We can do business.
We can do business. We have quorum, all right. All right, so 5 on the agenda is public comment for items on the agenda. If anybody has any questions, they can come up to the podium. Okay. And we will skip right to new business. Tonight, we have guests from all over the city who are joining us to give us input about the charter and ask questions if they have any. And in no particular order, we'll ask you guys, you can just come up to the podium and ask your questions, and then we can just move on to the next guest. So the first question is, who would like to go first?
Who's here first? Let's give Kelly from finance. She's
Okay.
here at City Hall and,
All right.
yeah.
Say come up to the podium?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just go to the podium plan.
Wants the phone book to stand up?
I might need a chair. Kelly Rao, Finance Director, City of Clausen. I was asked if I could attend this meeting to find out if I had any suggestions for changes in the charter. I did review it, and I just received your 24 items today, and one of the items I recommended is on your possible updates, which would be for the city clerk shall be the general accountant of the city. I think that is highly recommended should be
check.
changed. I recommend it be changed.
Yeah, that should be changed.
There are also several sections regarding property taxes, and I don't believe the majority of them reference the Property Tax Act, State of Michigan Property Tax Act. I did notice in one of your items it said anything regarding Board of Review to reference the Property Tax Act, but maybe anything regarding property taxes in general. That should be a guideline. And the last item that I had was the 8 installment payments for property taxes. That creates quite a bit of extra work for the treasurer's office, and Clausen is probably the only city, if not one of 2 in the state of Michigan that allow that for the residents. So it's a lot of extra work to make sure that the recording is properly. That is all I have.
Okay. Does any of the commissioners have any questions? Yes, sir.
Do a lot of people use that in the city?
About 500 people, 500 parcels.
Okay.
Okay. 467 to be exact.
Well, okay, now that's different.
Madam Chairperson, just a comment. It's 3 cities, and I happen to live in 2 of them. It's Ferndale, Pleasant Ridge, and Clawson. The only reason I know that is because the same person wrote all 3 charters. I love it as a resident. If it was up to me, I'd stretch it to 12. But I think you'd have a revolution on your hands. But I do understand there is a lot of work, but somehow they figured it out long before me. They have someone that writes a program that gives you 8 little coupons, and it's a great system. But I understand your comments.
Well, if we decided to like just entertain the idea of maybe changing the amount of installments that were made, what would you recommend being like a good baseline to be at?
3 max, 1 preferably for the summer, 1 for the winter. I would recommend, reviewing what other cities in the state of Michigan do and kind of use that as a guide.
Oh, yeah.
But typically, there's 1 installment. I've been in 2 cities where there have been 3 installments for summer taxes.
Any other questions? Okay. We thank you for coming in. If there's anything that you see at a later time that you might want to bring to our attention, or you can email us or contact us or come back to one of our meetings. But
Absolutely.
we appreciate you being here.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for all you do.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'll go. Oh.
Good evening. Some of you are probably like, who is that? I'm the librarian across the street. My name is Jenny Ganad. I don't have any suggestions or questions, but open to anything. We obviously have a part in the charter, but it looks good so far, working pretty well. So,
Does anybody have any questions for her?
I just didn't know if you needed anything. Did you want anything from us?
Lots of money. Yeah, new copiers.
I got my copier, so I'm happy now. So, no, thank you for asking that. I appreciate that. So far, so good. I will go back to my board and also ask them, but nope, we're happy campers over there. So, thank you.
Put happy campers.
Good happy campers, for sure. Underline bold. Good.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting me. Yep.
My name is Matt Albrecht. I served on City Council from 2015 to 2019. I do want to thank you for the sacrifice that all of you make to be here and to serve our city in this way. I have a few just questions, maybe comments, just some things that I found maybe as hindrances or barriers while I was on City Council. Under 4.31, the question is under possible updates to be considered. Should this section be modified to change or clarify procedures regarding filling of council vacancies? I think this would be something that we would be looking to you to adopt or to suggest to the voters. Some things that come to mind are if more than one seat is vacant, perhaps council must specify which appointee is filling which seat. And then the other thing that I think needs to be defined in that section may be the next regular municipal election. So it says that they will be appointed until the next regular municipal election. I think some clarification around that wording might be necessary. The next one was 4.32. There's a suggestion or a possible update is to remove some things regarding ethics from the charter and cover this through adopting an ethics ordinance. I do think an ethics ordinance is good. I think it's a good thing. My concern here is that an ethics ordinance is adopted by the City Council, and the ethics ordinance is designed to govern the City Council, among other things. So if we remove that from the charter, it removes kind of any oversight over that ethics section, so to speak. A council could come in and just remove all ethics ordinances entirely if that were the case. 4.35, consider whether to keep or eliminate requirement that elected or appointed officer must resign before running for another elective office. This is particularly a problem when a council member decides to run for mayor, which we've had several times. That council member then has resigned, and you know, in the case of the recent election, 2 council members resigned, leaving only 3 council members on council. I would recommend this to be reviewed and updated or changed. The other thing is a couple more things, and I'm sorry, I don't want to overstay my welcome here, but 14.02 and 14.03, possible updates to be considered. The question is, should the threshold for requiring detailed specs and formal bids be raised? I think there are fixed numbers in our charter that say, you know, at this threshold, we should be pursuing these things. My hope would be that that could be a number that is set by council at a regular interval, whatever that is. So those thresholds could become part of ordinance rather than part of our charter. Not necessarily to eliminate them completely. And having a fixed number like that in our charter, I think, is very restrictive. A couple little nitpicky things. 4.02, it's not really listed here, but it talks about somebody who's elected to council or as mayor will serve for 2 years from or 4 years from the second Monday following the election. I know in my time on council there was some confusion about what the second Monday after the election was. It seemed clear to me, but it wasn't always. And then the other thing is that our terms aren't exactly 2 years or 4 years from that Monday. If you go look at terms that are on the city website right now, it's the second Monday after an election until the next second Monday after the election, or whatever that is, right? So it's not 2 years or 4 years exactly. Kind of nitpicky. Might not be worth it. 4.07 does say that voting shall be by yeas and nays. Nobody's doing that anymore. And then 4.26 regarding nepotism. I know not long ago an employee of the city had a spouse who was considering running for an elective office in the city, and that was prohibited in our city charter. You know, I don't know, something to think about. I can see a conflict there by eliminating that, but you're also restricting who can run for office, and maybe that's maybe it's a good thing. Those are kind of the bigger ones that were on my list. And then the other thing that I wanted to make, and I'm sure all of you have thought about this, but I think when this goes before the people of the city, it's just one vote, right? It's a yes or no for the entire thing. And so my concern is that if we try to overreach, the more you put in there, the more opportunities you're gonna have for somebody to latch onto something that causes them to vote no. So that would be my only other concern or suggestion to consider. Yeah.
When you talk about a spouse of an employee who's going to run for council, but was precluded because the person worked here, that doesn't work that way.
I mean, that's what the charter says.
You can't preclude somebody from their First Amendment rights of doing something because somebody's employed. If the person gets elected to a higher level, and the person's already working, it's not nepotism, they've already been hired.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but that's not what the charter says, right? So we can read it if you want. Relatives by blood or marriage of the mayor, any councilman, or the manager within the second degree of consanguinity or affinity are hereby disqualified from holding any appointed office or being employed during the term for the mayor or councilman or the tenure of such manager.
But that's the elected officials while they're elected. So I'm working here, my wife runs. I'm already here, it's not nepotism. She's higher than I am.
Okay, I mean, that's fine.
I have a situation where I'm working right now.
Yeah.
I have a person on the council, his wife is running for council, so
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna have two of them.
That's fine.
So when you talk about nepotism, why wouldn't that be precluded? Because he's already here.
I'm suggesting that perhaps this section needs to be reviewed.
Reworded.
Yeah,
It does sound like a legal review to me,
Needs a
so.
little- Yeah.
No, I know, but that's what.
I'm not here to argue with you.
No, I'm not arguing, I'm just saying.
Are you sure?
that-
No, I'm kidding.
I'd argue with a fence post. No, but certain,
No, I appreciate
because
it.
I've heard that throughout my career, and I think that that's wrong.
It could be that, you know, I'm misinterpreting it, yes.
I have a question for you regarding what you made a comment on, this person, that the person will hold the office for 2 or 4 years until the next regular election. What was your concern?
So there's a couple things. What does it mean to hold the office until the next regular election? So does their office end at the election
Or 2 weeks?
or when the next person is seated, right?
Got it.
And then the other thing is that we say 2 years or 4 years from this date, but technically, that's not exactly correct from a
Okay.
calendar perspective, right?
I thought you were concerned because I work in a city now where it just says the next election.
Gotcha.
And it's like, was that federal?
Right,
County?
right,
Primary? Special? And that's why.
It specifies regular.
And I heard you say that, that's why I wanted to make sure. Now I know what your concern
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you listening to me, and it's for what it's worth. Those are my thoughts.
Does anybody have any other questions?
For the nepotism one, you said it was
4.26.
4.26. Thank you. That would,
All right.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
We appreciate everything you said.
Thank you.
And we will, as we do this, we're collecting all of the things that are important to everybody. And if you have anything in the future where you think you need to address or would like to come back, you can always do that too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Where's going in order here?
All right.
Orange for Halloween.
I got no shoes on. Sugar skulls.
Yeah, that's one of the Halloween earrings. I'm
Nice.
pretty excited. Again, thank you for having us here, former council member Sue Moffett. I feel really short, so I'm tiptoeing for some reason, but, so I appreciate you sending this list of thoughts, and I took some time to go over it. In my mind, anything under necessary updates is just that, it's gotta happen, so no discussion needed. Under the column of possible updates to be considered, you know, one of the things we hear regularly is we're doing a refresh, right? That was the comment that was made. We're not going to throw it out. We're not going to redo it. We're just doing a refresh. So in my mind, any consideration of 1.03, 4.01, 4.02, and 4.11 are revising. That's not a refresh. That's a complete, you know, change of how the council functions. It's a complete change of how the charter is written and intended. That, in my mind, is not a refresh. That's a rewrite. I agree with our finance director on 4.16. Makes perfect sense to me. So one of the things that kind of the overarching theme of all my comments is one of the things I think it's important that you guys look at as you're looking to refresh it is when we look at some of the problems and the conflicts that have existed over the past couple years, I think they're all couched sort of in the lack of clarity in the charter as far as checks and balances, separation of duties. And so I think things like 4.12 is really important for checks and balances, right? The clerk and the treasurer, not knowing the details of what you do, but in my mind, you know, the person who writes the checks and the person who's, you know, maybe requesting checks be written should be two separate people.
So, and it may not necessarily apply to that, but that's just, taking a look at that, not knowing exactly what those roles do, first thing that came to mind. Something that's definitely needed more so, I think, is checks and balances. The clarity of checks and balances that perhaps already exist in the charter. I agree with Mr. Albrecht on 4.31, definitely clarity, but again, as I said before, clarity is never going to keep bad actors from doing bad things, as we see, right? I think that 4.32, as it's written, I don't think it's an ethics ordinance as a replacement for that. I think it's pretty clear that it's saying you can't accept gifts and that sort of thing. Remembering that most of the people I know who chose to run for council, one of the first things that everybody that I've talked to and I did, and I know some of my fellow council members did, was pick up the charter and read it and try and figure out, okay, what am I supposed to be doing here, right? And I think that 4.32 is very clear and concise for the average layperson. Yeah, the ethics ordinance goes into more detail and consequences and all that kind of stuff, but 4.32 kind of lays it out pretty succinctly. Same thing with 4.33. I think that's something, maybe clean up the language a little bit, but don't take that out because again, I think, an ethic ordinance is more robust, but that keeps it pretty clear for the average person. I personally agree with 4.35. The reason being, this is whether or not you have to resign. If you look back to the year when Debbie Woolley decided to run for mayor, if you recall, they did not fill that empty seat and she had to resign. And the discussion that took place at that time was, and it's valid, if someone's running for another seat, but gets a public voice, they have a sort of unfair advantage to put forward their campaign and their ideas and sort of campaign from the dais. And so I think that's some wisdom in requiring someone to resign if they're running for a different position. And I would suspect that that's why that provision was perhaps put in place initially anyhow. I don't see need to change the fiscal year, but I would defer to those bean counters. And let's see, lost my place here. 4.39. I don't know why we would delete, well, it's kind of moot anyhow, right? It says that you can't remove someone within 6 weeks or something to that effect. There is Oakland County rules oversee that. The governor is the only one who can remove someone from an elected position, and then Oakland County rules oversee recall provisions. So perhaps it could be deleted in that sense, right? And the rest of them, I don't understand the reasoning why we would want to change them. I think that there would need to be more explanation about why would we want to deny someone the right to connect to the city sewers? There would have to be a case. And I think those last three, I think that the point that Mr. Albrecht made, that people are going to vote as a whole on this, and doing something that people might think is going to impinge upon their rights that they currently have and take them away or change them to some extent, is going to be something that's really easy to grab a hold of and throw the baby out with the bathwater. So, in summary, my thoughts are everything that you guys consider needs to be in the spirit of what I've heard so far. We're refreshing, not rewriting. Clarity is absolutely have to be the goal, and clarifying the checks and balances that exist and that will help the city operate. And just to again, if you look at the problems we've had over the past couple of years, it's people stepping out of their swim lane and stepping into someone else's swim lane. Questions, comments? Yes, sir.
So I have a question for you. You mentioned refresh and rewrite. That I know the 9 of us have never used that term. Is that something that council used when they decided to put this question on the ballot?
When Mr. Irwin was speaking in front of the council just a couple weeks ago, he specifically said that when you guys sat down to take up the mantle of your duties, you voted and chose to do a refresh versus a complete rewrite.
We did. By that, we didn't mean that we weren't rewriting anything. It just mean we weren't starting from scratch. We're going to take the existing document
Right.
and revise it. But that doesn't mean that, a lot of stuff that doesn't need to be in there, like you mentioned, stuff that's covered by the county is going to come out, things like that. So, I mean, the semantics argument, but we're not starting from scratch.
But it's a very poignant argument. As you all know, I was vehemently opposed to this commission, period. The concern being, having had a front row seat to some of the abuses of the charter over the past couple of years, and knowing the people that were pushing for this to happen, the concern was that there was going to be a rewrite of things in favor of those who were abusing said powers. And when I heard several times, we're going to refresh, not rewrite, I was like, oh, cool. That allays some of the concerns. But, so that's, that was the spirit with which I looked at this.
I understand. I didn't realize those comments were made.
Okay?
And see if I may, like some of these things that are on this list are things that our attorney with like fresh eyes, kind of pointed out as these are things you might consider. Like, I don't know that, we're taking seriously, doing wards. It was just something like, from a legal perspective, this is something that some communities do, something to think about. So just so you know, like, these are not necessarily things that, anyone is pushing for or whatever. It's just kind of like, that's interesting how different communities do different things, something to talk about. So I don't really think anyone is pushing for wholesale changes.
Understood.
Yeah.
And I was presented with the list and asking what my comments were. And my comments
I
are,
appreciate them.
if you take these up,
Yeah.
it's a red flag in my mind.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just kind of wanted to talk about your concerns. Like you said, I want you to know that when we use the words refresh, not rewrite, there are a lot of things in the charter that technically we can't supersede. There are a lot of things that are in the
Agreed.
charter.
That's why I said all these things you gotta do, right?
You know,
Understood.
like in the same thing that's in the charter, like there's a lot of things that council have done to go ahead and make this charter workable as well. And you've also said that some people have abused this charter as well, which I'm sure that you were tired of seeing. So like if you see that there's like an abuse of certain things, if you don't feel like, let's say tax levies and stuff like that, we're not formally worrying about that kind of stuff. We're more worried about what you're saying about people leaving positions and there not being another person there and there's not somebody there to be able to hold that gauntlet there. Because, council does their own separate heavy work. But, wouldn't it be a lot fairer in some cases that we do have in here where it says like, should the minimum age for mayor and council members stay at 25 or can it be, 21 or 18? Like, those are one of those moments where, maybe we can look at, how Clausen is, you guys are really closely connected with the community. I don't really see a lot of people moving out of here like that. In my opinion, they always come back. So I just wanted, when we were working on this, we wanted to be workable for, I don't want to say like for me, but like kind of for me. For me, like for my kids. And I want to be able to look at my neighbor next door and know like, hey, even though like the charter isn't exactly what it was beforehand, it might even be a little bit smaller. We're going to be using the same ordinances. We're going to be putting in the same law. So where we are saying we're making changes and we're making rewrites, it's supposed to be making it more readable for everybody else because of, what we've gathered from the couple of interviews that we've done is that it's not clear. And everything that we're saying is like, oh, it's like we got to clarify. Oh, we got to clarify. Oh, we have to keep, maybe we should be more accurate. Maybe we need to put a percentage in here. I don't want you to think that when we're talking about possible updates, like in, this wasn't our forward concern when we first took, going through an election and taking it and being able to talk with everybody and see where their minds are at. I just want you to know, like, we're here to help as well.
Awesome. And you're absolutely right. Clarity is what needs to be brought forward.
Right.
As I said before, you are never going to keep bad actors from taking bad actions. Mm-hmm. But clarity helps to be able to point out, hold them accountable for that kind of thing. But I would also say that something like changing from 25 to 18, that's just changing the spirit, right? I mean, that's changing the spirit with which the charter was written. It's not necessarily bad, but that does change the spirit of who you're going to have coming to council. And so that's changed the whole definition of what council is and what the criteria is and what we're looking for people to serve on council. You know, I'm old. I'm 59. I'm not young, but and especially having had sat up there for 4 years, I think that there's, and it goes back to when 25 was the rule for a lot of elected positions, right? There's some wisdom to have someone who, you know, brings some of that life knowledge to the table. That doesn't mean that someone who's 18 is not qualified. So maybe you put some other qualifiers around that. So if you're saying just that age in and of itself shouldn't be a qualifier, but definitely like requiring land ownership for a period of time, I think is wise. How many 18-year-olds own land? If you're 18-year-old land, rock and roll, you got something to share with us, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that as long as the changes, whatever changes are made,
Are reasonable.
and you have a good reason behind it, not just because, hey, we think 18-year-olds should be able to run, but give me the statistics, give me the fact, give me the political reasoning behind allowing that. Because everything that, I mean, Mr. Albert's 100% right. Everything that you change, every word of this is going to be dissected and compared and taken a look at. And you give a couple things for, you know, naysayers like me.
Well, yeah, that's why we have integrity.
Right. No, but seriously, drastic changes against the fundamental spirit of how the council and the city functions are going to be, you know, the baby out with the bathwater.
I just think people are seeing it as us we're trying to separate ourselves from council, and we're trying to work with council.
I didn't say we're trying to separate.
But I'm saying that's what it seems like the spirit of like feeling of the commission is that we're working separately from council. We're trying to cut whatever powers the council has and we're not. That's the last thing we're trying to do.
That isn't the impression that I had at all. In fact, you know, prior to the commission taking up the gauntlet and running with it, really kind of thought it was the exact opposite of that. Trying to, you know, over-empower. And that's why I'm saying that clarity and checks and balances, making sure that it's clear what stream everyone should be running in. You know, if you recall, the last council had some training, right? Because there was confusion about who was supposed to be do what. And even today on the current council, right? Pendulum swung the other way. People are concerned who can put stuff on the agenda, who can do what, and what's written isn't super clear. So that clarity is I think your primary. That's why in my mind the refresh, like let's add clarity to what's there.
Well, a big thing that I remember as a council, what we've been doing is when we did the whole read-through, we went through every single thing, and there may be 3 people here who interpret it in a different way. So that's what we want to clarify when we're talking about
We use the
being
word
clear.
rewrite. When I was like,
Yeah.
when we use the word rewrite, we really need clarity.
Yep.
And that's great. I'm all for clarity. I'm not for changing the spirit. We might be saying the same thing, but when I look at, and I get that you just got this list from the attorney and so you threw it out there, but I look at some of these things and if you're taking them up, that's not clarity, that's changing the spirit.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
So if you don't mind, could you give me 1, 2, or 3 items that you think is changing the spirit?
Yeah, 1.03, 4.01, 4.02,
Hold on. 103, 401, and 402, you said?
402, and 411.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
I just do want to clarify again, as I have in the past, that we're a group of people from very different backgrounds and very different opinions. And surprisingly enough, we haven't had arguments or significant disagreements. That doesn't mean we won't, but you know, we are going to be making decisions together. Nobody was placed here with any directive to make any specific changes. And I know that some people have a different opinion of that, but I'm going to say it again because it did come up. It wasn't that way. Clausen is small, and everyone here is excited to update things. And when it comes to refreshing, I will say probably 85% of what we are doing is refresh, simple refresh. A lot of verbiage, cleaning things up, removing things. There will be some rewrites, and it's because there have been major issues over the last year, and they do need to be changed. And we are going to be working together. Like I said, we have people here who have worked with, city management and charters and, for years, years. So we are really working to do what's best for the city. And all we can do is hope that the community is open-minded to that, because we can't make everybody happy. And we do appreciate anybody coming. I mean, this is fantastic. I love that people are here giving us these ideas, but again, our meetings are always there. You can view them online, and we always welcome the public in so that you can see the thought process behind what we're doing. So please feel free to come, whenever you would like, and ask the questions and give us ideas, but we're not trying to blow Clausen up and redo it. We're just trying to tighten things up. There are just some things that do need changing. So.
And I appreciate that, and I certainly respect anyone who's going to want to give up a bunch of nights and sit in this room and talk about this stuff, right? I will also say, having had that front row seat to the abuses that were perpetrated and those who pushed for this to happen, that is some legitimate firsthand concern. That's great. Like I said, when I first heard, hey, we're not doing that, we're refreshing and we're just going to add clarity, rock on, do that. That's great. And I know there's some people here that are going to make sure that the pendulum doesn't get inequitably shifted to one side or the other from what happens here. And that's how I'm saying we need to make sure it doesn't happen.
Thank you.
I think everybody needs to understand that from the first day that we met here, after the election, and talking to our attorney that we have now, and the attorneys when we're going out to bid, our charge under the language of forming a charter commission was to completely rewrite the charter as we deem necessary, from the first letter to the last period. So, I don't know what Bradley said about refreshing. Okay, we are refreshing. We're looking at every aspect of the charter. Now, we realize there are certain specific items in here that maybe some people at one time thought they might want to change our form of government and what have you. You can rest assured, everybody on this board realizes that and understands those types of things. And I can't speak for the other 8, but as Tracy said, we have not raised a word amongst us or whatever. We're all on the same page. We're doing the best we can with this charter from 1940. So there are, as I think Brad called them, big rocks and little rocks. And big rocks are you going to, the things that you're worried about. You got to make this a strong mayor form of government. In my mind, I don't believe this board is even looking at any of that.
Then that's great to hear. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
But
Yeah.
everybody, and I know this is televised, and this is more for the audience, that we are charged with a complete rewrite of the charter. So when we get done, we'll rewrite it the way the 9 of us have both agreed to do it.
Well, and so you can rewrite it, you can change the words, but what I have expressed is, it said several times, keeping the spirit of it intact.
Exactly. We don't see a wholesale change like we just threw your charter away.
Right, so you can put different words, right? You go to Grammarly and it changes words all around, right? That's rewriting what I'm saying, right? But it's getting you to the clarity of what you were supposed to be trying to say, right? That's cool. I'm down with that, right? As long as the spirit remains intact.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Thanks for coming.
Live long and prosper.
Thanks for coming, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you. Thank you for inviting us. And thank you for your time spent, because we're all volunteers. We're here because we love Clawson. Clawson is a small community, and you see the same volunteers over and over again doing different tasks. So, my name is Penny Lubes. I was on council from 2003 to 2017. The first 4 years as a council member, and the last 10 years as the mayor of Clawson. So when I decided to run for mayor and was on council, at that time, I resigned in October. So the state mandate at that time was you resign 30 days before the election. And the state changed the election wording, and you had to resign, is it 6 months before the election? So, 4 months?
I don't think that's a state rule. Some cities didn't have any requirement.
Oh, somebody changed it.
Yeah, no, it changed here, but that wasn't a state requirement.
Okay, that was my understanding when I questioned.
Because different
that.
cities
That was
had
the
none of
answer
that.
I received. But it would tell you in 2007, it was a 30-day resignation instead of the months that it is now. So, let's see, I'll go down the list like everybody else did. 1.03, should the city continue to consist of one ward or have multiple wards? Again, we're small, we're not large like other cities that have different sections or areas to represent. So staying one ward, and ward is a different use of word for me. I would appreciate seeing that it stays at one ward. 4.11, expressly authorize city manager to oversee department and department heads. That is what is happening now. The city council is the legislative board, make the policies and direct the city manager to follow the policies that the council makes. I don't know whether that's referencing, again, the word we're using is clarify. If we need to put more clarifying wordage in there, or what the rationale is in there. I would never like to usurp the power of council. I would expand on the council abilities. I think what this might be referencing is, where does the jurisdiction end for city council members and the city manager, and maybe that's something to clarify. 4.12, to eliminate the ban on clerk and treasurer positions being held by the same person. I will echo the words I've heard. What I wrote down before this meeting was, we need checks and balances. I don't think it's a good idea for the clerk and the treasurer to be the same person. I would also agree with everybody else regarding 4.16, should the clerk continue to be the general accountant of the city, or authorize a different person such as the finance director. The city clerk is our custodian of records and works with the election, so certainly our accountant is the finance department, small as it is. 4.31, should the section be modified to change or clarify procedures regarding filling of council vacancies? Absolutely, that needs clarification. To 4.35, consider whether to keep or eliminate requirement that elective or appointed officer must resign before running for office, and they mentioned that initially. Those were my comments on that. I did want to add that in my era and during previous city managers' terms, that our city attorney would commonly review the charter to remove the obsolete sections, such as no spitting on the sidewalk and those kinds of silly things. And all the revisions of the charter do have to go for a vote by the people, but we made more revisions or removals of sections in my era, but I don't know that they made it to a vote for the people. So there's a file somewhere or a stack of paperwork somewhere from years ago. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there were definitely attempts at charter amendments in the past. I don't know, some of them passed, some of them failed. They're annotated in the, when you go online and look, you'll see which ones, when they passed.
Okay.
I probably, if I did some research, would see which ones didn't pass, but it's like that big of a file.
Right. I know it was a stack of paperwork that is somewhere in this building. All right, yes.
What's your point of view of having to resign a position in order to seek another one on the council? You had to do it, so I'm curious what your position is on it.
For me, it wasn't a big deal because it was 30 days before the election, and maybe that's to separate from your previous position to campaigning for the new position. It is hard to campaign for another position when you're currently holding a position. I would either reduce it to 30 days or perhaps not at all. That present position ends at the next election, the election at 8:01 p.m.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, I actually wrote what you said down in my notes because I was gonna suggest that, but you already had it, so that's a good idea.
All right, thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to us.
Thank you. Thank you, Penny. Okay, Lou, Sherry, Len?
Well, I'll have to hobble up there if you don't mind. So.
We don't mind.
You can take a seat next to the podium, no one's mad.
Yeah, if
Yeah, you can do something.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
we don't mind.
All right.
So I had surgery or remove a bone in my foot. I have an electronic copy on my phone, but thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you all for putting this on. I appreciate the invitation. I think what you're doing is, and I may have mentioned this before, is fantastic. It's long overdue. I think when our charter was written, the Edsel hadn't even been built yet. So to imagine driving around in a car that was built in the 40s, it's unimaginable. So it's long overdue, and I appreciate it. So just a couple of things. One of my concerns is that, and it came up last year during the election, was we had a candidate who we thought was of eligibility to run, and it turned out that they were not. And I can appreciate the 25 age as being a requirement at some point in time. There probably was some merit to that, but things have changed. And certainly, if you're 18, you have the capability of voting, I certainly would expect that you have the capability of, if you so chose, to run for elected office. And my perspective is we should not put up barriers to having candidates that are willing to serve and have that ability to move forward in the process. So if those candidates are ones that the electorate would choose to elect, then we should in no way stand in that way. So having it be 18, I'm fully in support for it. And the same side of that, I don't believe in term limits, because again, it's a similar situation. We should not put up artificial requirements or artificial barriers to vote for the candidates that we feel are eligible and should be in those positions. So if you don't like a person who's in office, you should have that opportunity to either vote for them or not vote for them, or vote for another candidate. So that way, I think, we should not be putting up those types of barriers. So, and now I know some people may have some concerns over the fact that you might have somebody in term for a long period of time. But that's the burden and the responsibility of the electorate in order to make that determination. So that's what I think we should look into that, if that's something that you guys are considering. So yeah, my notes were that there should be no limitation on the right to vote for the candidate that one desires. This was recently just brought up the last time as far as a question on resignation. I don't think there should be a resignation requirement. I think that what we've seen is there's been some, the way that I believe it read that as of your declaration of candidacy, you need to have resigned your position from that point in time, according to our regulations. What that could potentially lead to, or further lead to, is loss of those people who are in other positions on committees that would have to leave those positions, who have a knowledge base, have an experience that I think is vital for the community to try and maintain. So if for some reason that person didn't run a strong campaign and it turned out that they have a strong background, strong knowledge base for the committee that they're currently on, they would then have to wait for another period of time in order to return. Not to say that they couldn't, but there's that gap, there's that absence that when you have new people that don't have that knowledge to step into a certain situation, I don't think it's fair to ask that person who was forced to step down to say, could you come in please and share your wisdom on what took place, rather than saying you don't need to resign, continue on, and there may be a transition at some point in time for them to fill the position that they're elected to, and also help fill the void that they left. So, first words I wrote down regarding all of this process: avoid ambiguity at all costs. So I'd like to say all costs, that's a little extreme, but avoid ambiguity. I think it needs to be as robust as possible. We need to also be forward-thinking in that. And as I was looking at just the language regarding the regulation of automobiles, it came to mind that we're under technologies now that we don't necessarily address autonomous vehicles. So there may not necessarily be a person that's in a vehicle that may be driving around, and how we regulate that. Whether or not that's through an ordinance or through our charter, so that, again, there's the ambiguity, and we have an opportunity now to try to address something to that nature. And the other thing was that there was a recommendation to be rid of the, was it airplanes? I think it was one of the recommendations. So it just caught my attention, and like, well, what about drones, right? So we have, obviously we have a flight pattern that's over a portion of our city, that regulation is the federal requirement, but there may be other parts of our city that, what happens if there's 12 people using drones that are over on the south portion of it? To just remove it altogether, perhaps maybe not necessarily be something that we may want to reconsider that. Again, addressing the robustness and the forward thinking about would we pigeonhole ourselves into a concern there that we would have to address by way of ordinance, but if we don't have it already in our charter, how do we move forward on that? Yeah, it's the same thing as far as the 3.03. It has something about the, oh yeah, here it is, the power to license regular operation aircraft. Under the influence of liquor should be expanded, in my opinion, to include other substances if there's not already a state law that already prohibits the use of controlled substances. It's there in their charter. It should either be removed or redefined and expanded to help us in those local situations. So. The other thing that I was looking at, and this came to mind with the more recent, this past year, Royal Oak had a determination on the placement of a cannabis dispensary. It was brought up in the Planning Commission for Royal Oak. They ultimately, Planning Commission voted it down. And on the Planning Commission were the mayor and another member of their city commission who wanted to move forward with it. What ended up happening is that the city commission ultimately took it up upon themselves and moved forward with that. The concern that drew my attention to was they have voting members on the Planning Commission who are also on city council, having an effect one way or another on potential legislation that they could be seeing. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that that should be eliminated or prevented, but I don't think that a member of city council should be allowed to have a voting position on either the Planning Commission, ZBA, or compensation committee. Certainly they could have a liaison position, but I don't think they should have an influence over potential legislation or something that could come up as controversial that was voted down by a member of, or a board of our government, and then brought up subsequently later on just to be reversed. I think that's counterproductive. I think that's flies in the face of a form of government that we should want, and that should be avoided. Now, whether or not there's been a question on the number of council members, I was just going through what other cities have. Of the cities that are less than 20,000, I think there's only one community that has more than 5 mayor and city council persons on that, and that was Berkeley, who had 6. So, you know, if that's being considered, obviously, don't have an even number. That's something that I don't think would be a wise decision. So, the other thing too that brought, as I was looking around, and it's something to consider. I don't necessarily advocate or would call against it. That Rochester has a process that they elect the mayor from their council people.
Yeah, that's come up.
So that may be something to consider. Again, one way or another, I just wanted to raise that as a potential for you folks to consider. And again, you know, anything that I say here is just from my perspective on sharing what my opinions are, obviously, and that whatever you folks decide, obviously there's a process in place which will require the perspective of the community for input further down the road. And the one thing that I would strongly recommend is that listen to what they have to say and get their input, and hopefully encourage as many people to speak their mind on what they would like. Hopefully they'll have enough information, you know, ahead of time for that they could you know, speak to what their desires are. And let's see, was there anything else? I think that's about it. So do you have any questions for me at all?
I think you were very articulate in what you said, because I didn't see it from the point of view you had about the term limits. I didn't see it from that point where it's like if they want to stay there and they're doing the job, or if even asking people to go ahead and leave certain positions, but asking them to give their expertise, that still might even be a lot to ask of somebody if they're learning a new place to transition into. And along with having somebody who's in like a position like council or be able to have that kind of sway, having multiple hands in different auxiliaries, I can see how that could be more of an hindrance opposed to making everybody in all parties aware and able to make that decision too. So I appreciate you bringing a different perspective because I did not see it that way.
Because potentially you could have, let's say, on planning commission, right? So we have difficulty a lot of times maintaining membership and quorum. So let's say that 5 people decided on planning commission that they all wanted to run for elective office, right? At that point in time, we would then hamstring ourselves that, okay, you all have to resign, but we can't conduct city business as a result of this. Just from a practical perspective, you look at the state, and then I don't want to go too far afield on this, but one thing that the last election cycle showed that I think there was 74% turnover as a result of term limits to what the state legislature's makeup was. And, certainly that is an unaccounted for circumstance. Obviously it's a situation where people want to make sure that, we get rid of whoever that guy is, but, my guy's doing a great job and should stay there, right? So, there's that aspect of it. But certainly, I would call to people who have an ambition and a desire to help this community to step up, and they should be given that opportunity. And certainly, that was one thing that occurred to me, because I did serve a long time on planning commission. I did have that opportunity to serve as the chairman of PC. Once my, I would say, signature piece of legislation on the landscape ordinance was finally brought up and passed, I think, okay, I've done what I wanted to do, let's move on to other things. And so I think there's a natural calling and a natural break point for people that they would understand that, okay, you've been here for a while, what is it that you can bring to the table? And again, the knowledge base needs to be there. You can't have a number of people constantly overturning in these boards and committees, or else we're going back and recreating the wheel every cycle. And that's something we want to try and avoid. So, whether or not, and that comes up to election cycles and what the break point is for election cycles. Should it be more staggered? So that you don't necessarily have 2 people running for elective office at the same time. That maybe it should be every other year, or every year somebody is running to fill those seats. So that's also something to consider. So, but thank you. I hope I answered your question. I know I went long on that.
No, I appreciate the actual, I appreciate that extra information because, this is stuff that I might not be 100% aware of or even been able to see unless I was doing it personally. So no, I appreciate the experience and the opportunity to hear it.
Anybody have any more questions?
I just wanted to say something.
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. I know what you look like. So one thing that has come up with all of this, elections and running and maximum terms, I just wanted you to know that we are taking into account the fact that Clawson is small. We have a much smaller pool to work with as far as, running mates and replacements. So that's something that will definitely, stay at the top of the pile when we're looking at those areas. Because, if you can't say you've hit limit, you have to go, but nobody wants to run in your place, so.
Exactly.
So that's something that we definitely have more conversation about when that area comes back up.
A lot of times, a lot of people, take themselves for granted that that they're capable of running and being successful. That was certainly something that I had thought of when I was on planning commission first starting off, like what could I contribute? And key to that was listening and understanding and learning, but also becoming an active part of the community. And I would highly encourage anybody who has any doubts about themselves, whether are capable of running on a committee or running for elective office, that they certainly try. One of those things that, I'll bring my baseball experience in. I can't say anything without trees and baseball, right? Is that, you don't know what you can contribute unless you're forced to do that. And that's how I started in coaching young children, and saw that that's a need and a niche that I brought to the table that was strong. And I certainly hope that I've done the same thing as I've been on planning commission and as an elected official on the city council. So, but again, I appreciate the opportunity to give my perspective. So, but thank you.
Absolutely, thank you so much. Anybody?
Okay, I'll hobble back to my seat.
Thanks for coming in.
Oh, appreciate
being
it.
here.
Thanks for trying.
I don't have a lot new to add. My name is Sherry Huffman. I'm a relatively new resident of Clawson, maybe 4.5 years, and I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for including me. I do sit on the Compensation Commission, which I've enjoyed very much, learning about the city. Most of the comments have already been covered that I was wanting to make a comment about, but I did want to say one thing specifically. You all have taken a very daunting task onto yourselves. This is not, you're absolutely not going to please everybody. But to think that we wanted you to do this as residents and voters to just refresh something, I don't think we will be very happy with that. Clarity, absolutely. If something needs to be rewritten, it should be rewritten. If it needs to come out, we've certainly changed over the years. Every year has, right? You have to keep up with the times. So I would be very disappointed if it was just a refresh and a few words changed here and there. And I think most of the voters would feel the same, otherwise we would have not voted to have this review done. We have a really important job, but please, and I think you very much are today, I'm hearing that, be fiscally responsible. It's a very small city. Please don't add more to our costs, that we don't need. I'm not a supporter of term limits for exactly the same reasons. You have a very small resource pool, and the electors, whoever goes to vote will decide what are the terms. That's my job as somebody that comes to vote as a resident. I'll tell you who I don't want and who I do want to be on the council or the mayor or the city. So you'll keep those things in mind and not be hesitant about making changes. I think it'll be very successful, and I'm proud to be a part of this, and thanks for the invitation. So, good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, another thing that I'd like to add, just for public comment, that everything that we're looking at, not only do we all have different backgrounds, but everything that we are considering is researched. We're looking at charters of different cities, and we're looking at legal matters behind them, and we are not just making changes and making decisions based on what we personally want for the city. We're trying to make it, as researched as possible. So, hopefully we can't make everybody happy, but hopefully we can, find something that's an even ground for most people.
Since Brad's not here, we should mention the model city charter, because he loves to talk about it. That's our guiding force.
And I would ask the commission to reconsider the time limit, considering he's up here now.
I don't go on. Actually, this is going to be the shortest one I've ever done.
Okay.
I really appreciate all you guys being there. It's a tough job to have meetings. And but you're well compensated, so. Really, like I said, thanks again. I'm not going to go through your list. Your list to me is just the things that you're thinking of until we start putting more meat to it. Then maybe we can discuss it. But right now, I think you're doing a great job, so why change? The only thing I ask is that when you're looking at these, keep your checks and balances. You know, I'm a real believer that the city attorney, the clerk, the treasurer, and city manager all report to council. Because some of them groups, some take the money in, some send it out, some record the money. And as long as you have the four, as a check and balance reporting to council, you shouldn't have any problems. Thanks for saying about the, everybody said it after that, we got a real little pool of people, and it's getting smaller and smaller all the time. So be as flexible as you can. That's the only thing I can say. Clarity is about the biggest thing, because I've read the thing 3 or 4 times, and I wasn't here when it was made, even the lawyer said it. Many decades before me. So thanks again for everybody. Anybody got any questions? Write this down in the minutes. It was short.
I will. I will.
But thanks again, guys, because it's a tough job. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lou. Mr. Casera, would you like to come up and talk to us about anything?
No thanks, I just didn't have a quorum, so planning canceled.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no quorum. Because it's policy. It's all full.
Well,
A little shy.
thank you for joining us. We have a meeting on November 8th, so if you do want to come in after you've looked at the charter or had anything that you wanted to discuss with us, you can come that time.
Yeah, I sent it up to August.
Yeah, that's the one at Hunter.
Not this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be at Hunter instead of
Okay.
here.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Do we have anybody else who wants to speak tonight? Okay. Thank you again, everybody, for coming in.
Thanks for
We
inviting us.
appreciate you so much.
Thanks for
And-
inviting us. Appreciate it.
Yep, we have another meeting on November 8th over at the Hunter Community Center. And you're welcome to come back, you're welcome to come and listen to the other speakers. But unless anybody has anything else, I think we'll continue on with our agenda.
Remember, at any time, you're always welcome to come speak at a meeting. If there's a specific item that's coming up that you think you want to address, you see us getting towards, come back and remind us.
And you're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting if you like.
And always like-
You're not being kicked out.
As always.
Okay. So next on our agenda, we're going to approve the minutes from the October 11th meeting.
I move it.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
She was saying,
Yeah, all in favor, yay. Any nays?
Good motion, did you read it?
No, Joe.
Oh, Jody, okay.
Yeah. And who seconded? Me. You did, okay.
Okay.
Parker.
Over there, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, going on to next, current business, do we have any vice chair nominations tonight? Joe?
David Bowler. I'd like to move that. I don't know if we're doing it by motion, if we're just doing it by suggestion or recommendation.
Well, recommendation and,
I guess I've not spoken to him before. I've not spoken to him at all.
So he didn't know that was coming?
So-
That's right, he didn't know it was coming.
That's
so
why I
do we
had
want
that
to,
look on my
do we want to discuss it? Because we.
Oh, he has to accept first.
Yeah, so would you accept that
David?
nomination?
Well, I've given it so much thought, it's been a minute now.
We can give you another minute.
As long as
just
we're
kidding.
not late. Is that how it works? Do other people want to do this? Are we going to have an election or?
We tell you what to do and you do it.
I think other people who are interested should be nominated, and, you know, and there'll be a vote.
Yeah,
Or
from the
votes
last,
up.
from the last meeting that we had,
Yep.
we said if anybody wanted to nominate anybody tonight, that would be the night to do it.
Yep.
And if anybody else is interested, they can speak now. Do you have a question, Talia?
I just wanted to kind of like, just talk about the vice chair position too, just wanted to clarify. I don't know, I like it from, you and Brad never said this, you never said any of the things that I'm thinking. want to just clarify that you did not tell me anything. If you guys need to delegate stuff out and if like we need to help a little bit more often, I just want you to know that we are here, at least I'm here. So if you do need that support, if you do need somebody to go ahead and talk to people and call out and stuff like that, I want you to know that you're always, you know, you guys do, I know you guys do other things. I'm just not sure of everything. I know there's stuff I don't know that you do. But I do want you guys to know that you guys can delegate things out to us so we can be a support because we don't have extra people. So I know that I'm going to be in I know that I'm going to be in school. I also know that my shift's from 11 to 8 p.m. So I know I'm not a good candidate to help, but I can put in work when I get off of work. I want you to know that I can call people before I go to work at 11 a.m. if that is what helps. If you need that support in that place, I just want you to know that I'm there for that because it just seems like you guys were handling a lot of items. But I think you guys were trying to handle it with each other only, and I just want you to know that we're here too. Because that's what kind of seemed like it was. It's just like a lot of responsibility, a lot of juggling around with day-to-day life too, and trying to make sure that you're breathing as well. I just wanted to leave that open for that too.
That's appreciated. Joe?
Just one comment. This doesn't preclude, you know, I spoke first. It's surely, I'm not the last word, and it should be considered that if there's anyone else who'd like to be nominated, I'd be glad to move it. I'm pretty sure Samantha would move people as well. But I know Wayne's not interested. Brad surely isn't, and Dan's not here, so that limits us to.
Well, we can
Right,
actually
and
just
I
assign it
understand.
to Dan
So-
then.
So it limits us, I'm sorry, Tracy.
We can just assign it to Dan.
You'll never miss it.
He's
You
not
know,
here.
that's a really good idea. That would be very,
Actually, I think he'd be good at it.
I'd be open to it.
I think David would be
If
good
it's
too.
really
He's
gonna
nice
be
and
bad, but I will
level.
delegate. I will ask for help. Very respectfully.
Okay,
As
well-
long as nobody doesn't mind helping when I do ask for help. I don't think I'll ask for it much, but
I do it any way you want, like John Starren said last week, whatever you decide.
I made a motion about it.
You make a
So
second.
there's a motion on the table,
No, motion, but no second.
but no second.
So it's only, I only made a motion, there's no motion on the table.
I second the nomination for David Bolin.
Okay.
But he has to accept it.
So this is what I'll say. We have a lot of work ahead of us.
Mhm.
A lot of work ahead of us.
yes.
This does not mean that if somebody wants to jump in and help, that they can't. That doesn't mean that. So if you're offering help to us, we will always accept
100%.
it.
CC me in every single email that you get.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that at a future time, emails. But for now, let us know what your thoughts are, David.
Can I get a car?
No, there's no car allowance. There's not a car allowance, I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
there's, no car.
I can always be like Brad and quit, so sure.
Well, that's not necessarily correct, it has to be accepted,
Yeah, it's
your
true.
resignation.
That's true.
So I wouldn't necessarily make that decision based on you can quit. And then-
Did Brad step back just from the position or from the commission?
No, he stepped back from just vice chair because he has school, he has just too much on his plate. And I think it was a good decision because he's still able to be on the commission. And I think not having that heavy load
He
helped
foresaw
out.
himself missing some meetings.
A lot
And
of
when
meetings.
your number one job is to take over when the chair's not available and he wasn't gonna be available, he felt that maybe someone else should take over the job. So
Yeah.
That's what he told me in person, at least, so.
Yep, I mean, because he's done a lot of work.
Absolutely.
For us, so we still need his expertise. He's very smart, and I know that he's still going to be helpful. It was just like, being here and knowing ahead of time that he's going to miss a lot of meetings, so.
So we have a motion and a second, and
Let's try it.
you're a willing participant.
I will accept it.
Okay, so all in favor? Aye. All opposed?
You can get it.
I would absolutely
You still
help
got
with
it.
training. The only reason I'm not stepping up is because I'm also running 2 PTOs, so.
Well, they say that the busiest of people are the people that you go to get things done. I'm on the athletic board.
Yeah.
I'm teaching faith formation. I'm a sub at school now. and I do this. And I have a family with 2 young kids. So the busiest of people can do lots of things. So we have a lot of work ahead of us.
Yes, we do.
And thank you, David, for accepting.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll change some of the website.
Yeah.
Stuff like
We
that.
can make
That's minor stuff.
Making that note right now.
And we appreciate it.
I'll get a new picture.
You'll get a new picture, she'd
Yeah.
like to. All right.
Nice there, it's nice.
So we, last meeting, there was a lot of things that were going on. And I just wanted to make a comment about how much work Brad has done and that he has been appreciated for a lot of things. I didn't say that last meeting. Joe, you mentioned without him with the RFP.
Yeah, the two of us collaborated on.
Yeah, and behind the scenes, he's done quite a bit for us. So I'm really appreciative that he's going to continue to be here and do things, not in the background, because he'll be at some meetings too. Which brings us to our next agenda item, which is commissioner comments. We didn't talk about this last meeting, but does everybody have a copy of the proposed plan that we sent out last meeting? It was in the agenda, the packet,
For the last meeting?
for last meeting. And it was, there's it's called Clawson City Charter Commission, Charter Review and Revision Process, fall of 2022.
It's got Fremont in it.
What, Brad, yes, and it's 8 pages, and it's a very thorough process of what's to come. He's laid out a lot of things for us, and my question is to you, do we accept this proposal and do we work with what's inside it? And I would like to decide that tonight if we're gonna do that. And I'd like to make a motion for us to go ahead and move forward with this proposal, to follow what's in it.
Laura, is that filed in our shared drive? I'm not seeing it.
No, it was emailed to us
Okay, we should get that in the shared drive.
in the last, yeah, I haven't, that's a great idea, we can do that. We'll add that to the shared drive.
What date did that come through?
I think you sent it the day.
Well, it was the Thursday before the last meeting,
So the 12th.
and somewhere around October 6th.
Yeah, it's,
November
yes,
11th.
October 6th. It's for the October 11th meeting.
Okay. So if we haven't read through it, we don't have to make a motion right now, but maybe the next meeting,
Perfect.
we can read through it and look at it, just because he told me he took a lot of stuff from the Model City Charter, and I would like us just to decide, yep, it looks good, we're gonna go ahead and follow it, or, yes, it looks good, we're gonna follow it, but here's a couple of things that we might wanna talk about in update or something before we go ahead with it. Okay, so that's what we can do. I'll put that on the agenda for next meeting then.
Yeah, like there's some things in here that were decisions that we were slated to make tonight that obviously we're not going to. But it also says no meeting election day, so those decisions can be put to, we're not behind.
Right, yeah, this, I won't make us behind. The next thing I'd like us to decide, the attorney asked if we wanted him to be here tonight, and I did not have our notes for the last meeting, so I knew we had a lot of speakers, and I told him probably not necessary. Do we want him to be at the next meeting?
Is he gonna be able to make it to the next meeting, considering it's election day?
Well, I don't know about that, but if we wanted to be there, we could invite him.
I would invite him if you was like, honestly.
Do we have a lot of
invite him really
guests
good.
next meeting?
We have a lot of guests.
Yeah, probably the
next-
same.
It'll be the same forum as we had tonight, so.
I don't know what benefit that would be.
Well, except that we're slated to approve his revision work plan and deliberate on that. So
If he has it.
If he has it, so
what-
that's what I would say. If he has it, and we have it with time to review and discuss.
The part about it being election night, he is the city attorney for other cities. He may be needed.
Oh,
You know, I don't know. that-
thank you. I didn't realize
Yeah,
that
he is,
he had to do this.
So maybe see if he can provide, say if he has already started possible, like where he's at with revisions, and we can take a look at, well, you guys can take a look at that.
Because we asked him to omit like everything that we're just decided we're taking out and code things that are getting changed in ordinances, so we know exactly what we have to look at, right?
Yes.
So that's a great question. And there was an email that Brad sent recognizing that we probably are really looking for like a 2-column report of the ordinances questions, that we wanted to be specific about what ordinance we would be talking about. And I asked the attorney to hold on to that because we really did not approve yet the plan. So once we approve the plan, we can ask them to go ahead and do that. Unless you want to go ahead and decide now, make a motion, and we can have them start working on it. And then we can have them send that with the next revisions.
I think we should just go ahead and ask him to make the necessary changes, update, and then based off of that, if he's able into the next meeting and we're satisfied, then we can go ahead and talk about possibles, because that will still have us, we will still technically have enough time to talk about possible revision changes on Tuesday next week.
Okay, and if he's not here, have him send those, we can review them, and then,
Yeah, so just see-
and then he can come to the next meeting,
'Cause-
after November 8th.
Yeah, because we should be mostly clear, if not all clear, from the people that we needed to talk to, right? I think all of our interviews should be done by then. Am I wrong?
I would think, because if we want to start, once we decide and vote that we're going to follow the plan, it's a lot clearer on what we're going to be doing, because in the plan, it has pretty much like our agenda all the way out till April. So we can get the attorney starting, that would be the motion, to ask the attorney to start the revisions and the ordinance questions.
I would like to motion that we go forward with that, because, to be honest with you, I would like for us to just start looking at what we need to be looking at. Get rid of all of this other, noise.
We did that last month. You motioned that he begin the revisions on the first part, those first, it's in the minutes, the necessary changes. So those were started.
What I'm meaning to is actually removing the stuff that we've decided, if he's accepting to remove it, just getting rid of
Yes,
it.
that was what the motion last meeting, that's by my understanding, in the minutes. It was, he was to start that process and get that low hanging fruit out.
And that's what I'm
And we were waiting for a draft of
where I'm
that to
at.
approve, and then we have to adopt that still. It has to be adopted by the charter, but he was supposed to come to us with that language. No timetable, but that's what I,
Okay.
that's me.
So if that is what we portrayed to him, then that's where, where
But the
I'm
second
at.
part of that is the recommended list for the,
Ordinances?
for the ordinances.
It's coming down the road.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what we need a motion for in a second, so we can vote on it.
I will motion that we ask to move forward with the ordinance revisions, if we want to do it as a double column, whatever's going to be easiest for him, as far as how he wants to report it to us. I know, he's been making notes in it, within the charter itself, our working document, but if it's easier for him to give us the side-by-side, if it makes more sense.
Okay.
The Point of Order, Chair, we don't know what all those ordinances are going to be. It depends on what changes you make down the road. We just want a running list that goes along congruent with what we've asked him to do.
Yeah.
I think that's the appropriate.
Yep.
Because there's going to be more down the road or less down the road, depending on what you change. But we asked for this, so we never did ask, when you make these draft changes, what ordinance have to change with it?
Okay.
That wasn't
That's
in
true,
my notes. so.
because it may lead to other adjustments.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the motion on the table, is to get the attorney to go ahead.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And has he been sent our timetable?
Yes, he had a copy of that, but what we're waiting on is for us to decide to run with it.
I mean, if it's reasonable to him, is there any reason that we see to not run with it?
Well, I would like everybody to review it.
Yeah, I mean, I just like looked through it.
Yep, because, you know, Brad's very intelligent, but we just want to make sure that what we see, that we're not missing anything. Or that we don't want to add or take out.
I agree.
So-
It's 8 pages.
Yeah, it's 8 pages. So if everybody could look at it for the next meeting, then we can adopt it and we can move forward with what it looks like.
And I think that is appropriate to adopt the timetable. I think that's appropriate motion for the commission.
Okay. And we'll do that next meeting after everybody has a chance to look at it.
Good.
Okay. Okay, so do we have any other commissioner comments?
Are we going to approve the bill?
That one gets approved automatically.
I know it does. I just
For
didn't-
the, yep,
Okay.
yeah, we did, I
just
did
didn't-
that
I thought
on,
we've always approved it regardless.
Not merged, we always approve the attorney.
The attorney, that should be at the next meeting, right?
That'll be the next one.
yep.
Can you highlight on the next agenda where the meeting location is at?
Oh, yeah.
Where all creatures of habit will all show up here, and the public will show up here, and the chairperson will be there by herself.
No, she won't.
You'll be here with us.
Well, you'd be here with the voters, right?
See the line of voters and turn around.
Exactly, that's why if you highlight in yellow font, it makes, like that and time changes and so forth, makes it a lot easier for people.
Okay, good idea. All right, anything else for commissioner comments?
Is the attorney coming or not? I just heard like maybe and maybe not.
Not next year.
I
Not
think we were
coming.
looking at the 22nd.
That's what I thought, and we're still inviting guests. And we'll probably have a full house like we did
I think
tonight.
it's gonna be about the same.
Good.
Yeah.
You know what's weird? The
22nd seems so long.
residents, some said, you really need to change this, and others said, you really don't touch that section, and the identical sections. I mean, typically what you would expect to hear.
A little bit of both. Okay. Any more comments? Questions? Okay. Next on the agenda is public comment for items not on the agenda. Does anybody have anything? No? Okay. So the next agenda items, we kind of talked about that a little bit. We won't have the attorney at the next one. It'll be the one after that on the 22nd.
Or me.
Or, oh, that's right. Yeah, or you. Okay.
Is Wayne gonna fill?
I won't be here either.
Wait, on the 8th you won't be?
Who, can we?
Be in Haiti.
Oh, that's right, you did say that.
So are
Okay.
we covered for the next meeting?
Covered in terms
I
of
thought that we were covered for our quorum.
quorum, I thought we were.
Well, how many
I will be
people?
here.
You'll be here?
I'll be here for both Novembers.
Yeah, and Wayne as well,
Okay,
and you as well.
We'll have 5 for sure.
So you'll have
okay.
Dan will be back, hopefully.
Okay, we'll be covered.
Where's he at?
And Dan, he might be available. And, yeah, we'll be fine.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're all set with that. And that's it. If somebody wants to make a motion to adjourn,
I'll move it.
it's 8:05.
I'd second that.
8:05.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
A lot of good feedback today.
Yeah, sure.